What is good YouTube? Only King here, back with another video regarding Mortal Kombat 1. This time I'll be discussing the characters that I would personally like to see return in the game, and I'll explain in full detail why all of them would be good picks and how they could function in this game. I will also be attempting to create a more realistic roster closer to the end of the video, so watch the full thing. First thing first, we have all of the confirmed characters in the middle. Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Liu Kang, Raiden, Kenshi, Kung Lao, Kitana, Mileena, Johnny Cage, and Shang Tsung. They're all very solid picks by the devs, but I'm 100% sure Mileena is only in there to prevent threats sent from salty stands. Now, rules of the video. I will only be featuring characters originally from Mortal Kombat, pretty self-explanatory. And when looking back at their moveset, I will look at the most recent game that they were playable in. Not where they appeared, but where we could fully control them. Anyways, on with the video. Revealing the first added slot, we can see the one and only my boy Baraka. I can't even tell you how fun this guy was to play in Mortal Kombat 11. Feels like no matter what you did during a match, you'd always end it with a brutality. His most famous special move being Chop Chop. Not only that, but his combo game and pokes were elite. He also had an OP overhead and a pretty fast projectile. Kinda makes you wonder why he's not higher on the Sonic Fox tier list. Story wise, I can tell that MK11 tried to make him a more important character closer to the end. I'm pretty sure Kitana had a freeway with Baraka and Shiva when it comes to ruling over Outworld, but in Aftermath we once again see him as a jobber. If he was featured in this MK, I think they could really spice him up, since Sarkadans are nowhere to be seen in this game and got replaced by some disease. They could just say that he was infected for a long time and he could teach Mileena how to use her disease in combat. Sort of like her mentor. Yep, I could definitely see that work. Next up is Smoke, another badass ninja sporting a grey outfit who, as his name suggests, uses smoke to best his opponents in combat. MK9 is basically like a distant childhood memory to me, so I'll talk about his cyber self from MKX. He has a smoke bomb, which is the most unique way to start a combo I have ever seen in a fighting game. He has his own version of Scorpion Spear, which could return depending on whether he's a cyborg in this installment or not. And lastly, he has many getaway options via his many teleports. Story wise, he could be like Smoke in MK9, Kuai Liang's best buddy who gets kidnapped by his own clan. Kuai Liang is Scorpion this time, so that should be fun to see, and maybe he'll get to use his well-known quote in the story mode.
Where there is smoke, there is fire.
Following pick is one that many people seem to agree on, and that is Reiko. I'm not too fond of his lore, but I can tell just by looking at him, he's trying to be the next Shao Kahn. He also looks like my dog's human Sona, but let's not get sidetracked. Gameplay wise, he has the ability to teleport out from the ground, much like Noob Saibot. He also has shurikens, which he throws in quick succession at the opponent. He also has a shoulder bash, which, come on, you can see the helmet. We know who this move was inspired by. And lastly, he has a grounded backflip, which launches the opponent. Oh, I also want to mention how cool his grab looks. Overall, a solid moveset. I heard some people think he'll be sharing the throne with Mileena since the comics show them in a romantic relationship, but I think she'll be sharing the throne with Tanya since games strive to be woke. Appeal to the include as many LGBTQ characters as possible. There. Taking that into consideration, Reiko will probably fight Mileena for the throne, just like Kotal Kahn did in MKX. Although Kotal Kahn was victorious, we'll see how Reiko's story ends. Next up we have Dramin. I know he was leaked as a cameo, but who will the three Devora fans main? The devs could easily replace her with Dramin since he's also gross looking and commands a swarm of bees. In his gameplay, Dramin can be seen pulling all sorts of shenanigans, such as throwing balls of bees at the opponent, spinning his arm like a helicopter. He has a rising uppercut, one really goofy grab, and perhaps the most complicated ground pound to pull off. In the story he could, supposedly there is a bigger threat present than Shang Tsung, so he could side with them. It would make sense since Dramin spent most of his life in the Nether Realm, and wants to spread chaos and suffering everywhere he goes. Speaking of spreading chaos, Havoc is another character I'd love to see in this installment. Out of the three characters I played in Armageddon, so far he is my second favorite, right after myself. He has a slide that covers the whole screen, he breaks his kneecaps to fire a projectile, and breaks his spine to perform some Crash Bandicoot type of move. In the story mode, he could team up with Dramin since their motives are similar, and I also doubt Moloch will be in this game, so why not start a new friendship between two of the most unique characters in the franchise? Next up is someone who is very far from a jobber, and has a special place in my heart despite being treated horribly in MK11. That would be Kotal Khan. The only reason people dislike him is because of how badly he was beaten by Shao Kahn, which, are you surprised? Barely anyone survives an encounter with Shao Kahn.
He must win.
Earthrealm is free!
So that fact alone is impressive. In combat, he wields a Makahui, or in other words, a big ass sword. In MK11, he also has two sickles, which is pretty neat. He sends sun rays to chase after his opponent. He always has a command grab in his arsenal. And he can turn into a panther to pounce on his opponent. Oh, and the totems. The totems.
Oh my!
In this story, he could be on Kitana's side, as we have seen them getting along in MK11. Oh wait, I just remembered that Melina is canon in this timeline. Well, she seems to be close with her sister, so by the rule of any friend of my friend is a friend of mine, we can assume that Kotal will be a good guy and will probably lead the Hashtag people. If the big bad is Onaga, we could see all of the good guys unite and take a jab at him. Next up is the hoe that cheated on B-Han. Or is that not canon? Anyways, we might finally see B-Han, known as the grumpiest Sub-Zero of all time, for once being happy with Serena by his side. In gameplay, she has a wind-up punch, a multi-kick, a very fast launcher, and the ability to throw knives. Her most prominent feature in gameplay is definitely her speed. In the story, she could assist the brothers in serving Liu Kang, and essentially be the third wheel to Scorpion and Sub-Zero's bromance. Oh, and we could potentially see her demon form that everyone is speculating about. Yeah, not much in the story department, but makes up for it in looks and gameplay. Now, on to the big boys of the roster. Starting off with Kintaro. I know what you all might say, but big boss characters can't be on the main roster.
I don't care.
We had Kotal Khan in MK11, who was an absolute unit, and he was on the main roster. And the reoccurring trend seems to be that we always need to pay extra in order to play as a Shokan. Unless you got the pre-order MKX, lucky you. We got Goro in MKX, Shiva in MK11, and now it's time for Kintaro to pull up. He was only playable in MK Armageddon, in which he had a fireball, typical of the Shokans, a command grab which actually had very solid reach. And what I can only make out to be a taunt. Yeah, if we can give him the classic Shokan stomp, only this time less busted.
I know it's supposed to be fun. I get it. I shouldn't be crying.
And we'll all be fine and dandy. In the gameplay trailer, we can see that Goro is assisting Melina in battle. We don't know if this is a single fight matchup or an actual matchup we see in the story mode. But if that is the case, then we can assume Kintaro is also on Melina's side. This would be cool, as we'd be getting two Shokans in one game, just like we did in MK9. Oh sorry, we got 3. But this time, one as a main fighter and one as a cameo. Cyrax is another fan favorite and probably the best of the 3 cyborgs in each game they appeared in. His bombs, his saw, and his net all lead to infinite combo potential. He also has a pretty handy command grab to catch airborne opponents off guard. Probably the most fun character in MKX in my personal opinion. He could add to the plot by giving depth to the Link Way faction, and we could potentially see him in his human form, throwing bombs opposed to ejecting them out of his chest. And same can be said for his saw and net. They pulled this off well in MK9, so I'd love to see a return. Li Mei was briefly shown in MKX's story mode, but that's about it. In gameplay, she mostly utilizes hand-to-hand combat. She has a decent projectile, a front flip and a back flip. And lastly, something I can only describe as a Jackie Briggs charge. Also, what are those stage interactions? Feels like they follow your every step in Armageddon. Story-wise, she could work a lot like she did in MKX, assisting the special forces with... What were they doing again? I don't know, saving the world I guess. I mainly put her here because of her amazing moveset, and that goes to show. Next in line is a character that you either love or hate, no in-betweens. The said character is none other than Sindel. She was done way too dirty in MK11 and desperately needs a redemption arc, or another retcon. If you're not caught up with the lore, then I'll just say that all of that mind control done to her by Shao Kahn in every single Mortal Kombat game ever was not a thing in MK11. Yep, she killed her husband out of her own will and got with Shao Kahn. Anyways, onto her gameplay. In MK11 she played very finicky, being able to fly around and stuff, that cursed hairspin, and her spear, which I don't really want to see return. I'd love to see her play more like Black Canary from Injustice 2 in the next installment, utilizing more of her screech than weapons. Ermac is another character beloved by many, and can you really blame him? I mean them. They're dripped out in red. No, actually that sounds dumb. He has telekinesis, he shoots souls out of his hands, and last but not least, he is many while you are one. In the many story modes of Mortal Kombat, he is once again a jobber. Seriously, a husk full of 1,000 souls that is used as a bodyguard, he should be the one under protection if anything. He could be holding souls of very important combatants without even knowing it. In this game, he should definitely have a more major role. Maybe he could be used to bring the Dragon King Onaga back to life, or even Blaze. Concepts like that really make me excited to see what direction MK1's story is gonna take us. Gameplay wise, he is another character who is especially fun to play, mostly due to his many launchers. His lift can be done twice in one string if you're playing Mystic. His freaking teleport launches if it's meter burn, and on top of that he has amazing combo enders such as his Superman Flight and Soul Push. I didn't expect to have so many good things to say about a character I rarely ever play. I feel like the next two picks will only appeal to me and everyone else will look at them like, huh? First up we have
Cabal Sack.
I'm definitely rather biased on this one since he was my side chick in MK11, and I'm pretty sure he got me some of the Kombat League skins. I mean, where do I even start? His supersonic speed puts the Flash to shame, and his hook swords add flair to his movements. He has countless command grabs or just combo strings which show him hooking the opponent like it's Dead by Daylight. His gas burst is pretty cool, although I can't say I equipped it much. And of course, his most memorable and meme-worthy move. Story-wise, he was once again done dirty, being tricked by Kano of all people. I don't know, Cabal wasn't really the thinker in this game. Maybe if we got him back in a manner similar to MK9, where he has pals with Striker and leaves his dark past behind him. I don't know, I'm a big fan of his character in that MK game, and many people seem to agree. And hey, if Kintaro miraculously makes it in, then we could finally see him get his revenge. And in the last spot, we have the biggest simp of all. Geras. Now I know it sounds bad, but hear me out, I beg you. Since Chronica has ceased to exist in the last game, we could see Geras' own morals being presented for once. I think he'd be able to see reason this time around, since he is always so calm despite how horrendous the outcomes of his missions are. And without anyone commanding him now, he would probably train in the White Lotus faction, opposed to fighting against them. I know I mentioned a lot of unlikely alliances, but these are the most fun part of the stories. I don't think anyone expected Kotal Khan, Kitana, Shiva, and Baraka to all get along in the end, but it happened anyways. Unless you count Aftermath, which I shan't, since its only purpose was so we can see Kari Tagawa for 2 straight hours. And whilst we're on the topic, I can't even tell you how sad I was to find out he doesn't play Shang Tsung in this game. I was also sad because they're reselling DLC again. Gameplay wise, it's safe to assume that even though Raiden is now immortal and still wields his lightning powers, I think Geras could also wield his sand powers and maybe just a sprinkle of time manipulation. You get his infamous sprint back, his sand traps, sand hammers. He has everything, and depending on whether or not we do get Dramin, we could see his Doomfist back in action. Now I know most of these picks seem far-fetched, so I also created a way more realistic roster which can now be fully seen on screen. All I'm gonna say is that the highlighted characters were supposedly leaked, and I might just go with the flow and not give much explanation, but I still added some unconfirmed characters in there. First up we can see Kai. He makes sense since Liu Kang is just too cool to fight with mortals, and Kai would be a great successor. He could play like Liu Kang does in the previous games, but with a bit of his own fighting style visible throughout his moveset, however you may pronounce it. I also have Sonya and Jax in here since Sonya basically birthed the concept of cameo fighters, meaning she was playable at some point in development. And of course you can't have Sonya without Jax, who is also a cameo. We know very well that main fighters can also be cameos, as shown by Kung Lao and Sub-Zero, so Jax and Sonya are sounding a lot more likely. We have Rain, because fans want to see the same obscure character in every game despite how boring he may be. Reptile, because he is the third ninja ever created and I can't imagine him missing out 2 games in a row. And Fujin. This one is more of a shower thought if you will, but there is one very clear reoccurring plot point. And that is always the fight between Liu Kang and Raiden. I'll assume that Fujin is still a god who exists in a single plane, meaning that he could travel from wherever down to Earthrealm and be like, yo Raiden, this Liu Kang guy, he stole your job. You're supposed to be the god. After which all hell breaks loose. I'm pretty sure that's about all. Phew, this video was quite a mouthful and we're not even done. Next up I'll be looking at cameos I want to see in the game, and after that I'll attempt to make a moveset idea for a potential future guest in the style of Brawl Fan 1. But instead of Smash we'll be doing it for MK1. And let me tell you, it's gonna be crazy. I watched a whole show to get the best idea of how he would play. I hope that, as always, you guys enjoyed the video and look forward to the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe and yeah, peace.